Hey everyone, welcome to another discussion video of capital gains taxation. So this is already our fifth and last video about CGT. And again, I would like to say na etong discussion ko dito is based on the book of Sir Rex B. Banggawan, CPA MBA. Yung book niya ay Income Taxation, Laws, Principles, and Applications. Alright, let's start. So we have two kinds of capital gains taxation. The first one is this. Capital gains tax on sale, exchange, and other disposition of domestic stocks directly to buyer. Ang CGT rate for this under the train law is 15% ng net capital gains, and this is applicable sa lahat ng taxpayers except for foreign corporations. Kasi yung foreign corporations, they are subject to the two-tiered 5%, 10% CGT rates. So 5% para sa net capital gain up to 100,000 pesos, and then in excess of the 100,000 pesos net capital gain, it will be subject to the 10% CGT rate. So, meron na tayong na-upload na detailed discussion for this. So, kung gusto niyo maintindihan itong capital gains tax on sale, exchange, and other disposition of domestic stocks directly to buyer, so kindly check na lang. No? If I'm not mistaken, that was the part 3 of the CGT discussion. So, itong video na to, this is only for the discussion of the second type of capital gains tax. And this is the capital gains tax on sale, exchange, and other disposition of real properties classified as capital asset located in the Philippines. If you notice, I put some emphasis on the words real property. So, ano bang ibig sabihin ng real properties? It refers to fixed properties or immovable properties just like lands and buildings. And then take note, dapat these real properties are classified as capital asset. Ibig sabihin nun, dapat hindi siya ginamit for business purposes. Kasi if ginamit yung real property for business purposes, it will be classified as ordinary asset. And then, another thing also, dapat itong real property is not, this real property must be located in the Philippines. Okay, now, pag-uusapan natin kung magkano ang capital gains tax rate sa sale, exchange, and other disposition of real property classified as capital asset located in the Philippines. So, sabi dito, it will be subject to a tax of 6% of the selling price or the fair value, whichever is higher. So, etong fair value, ang tinutukoy dito ay kung alin ang mas higher in amount between the zonal value and the fair market value. Ang zonal value, ito yung valuation ng real properties galing sa Commissioner of Internal Revenue. And then, ito namang fair market value, ito naman ay valuation ng real properties galing sa provincial and city assessors. And then, ito tandaan nyo class, etong land lang ang merong zonal value. The other real properties, wala. Ha? Land lang ang merong zonal value. And then, if we're going to talk about fair market value in the assessor's office, meron dyan si land at yung kanyang improvements. Pag sinabi nating improvements, that include house o kaya buildings. Ganyan. Alright, illustration na tayo. Okay, let me read it first. Sabi dito, Terry sold a vacant agricultural land for 5 million pesos. The land was previously purchased by Terry at 4 million pesos and had an appraisal value of 8 million pesos and a zonal value of 7 million pesos. The property had a fair value of 6 million pesos in Provincial Assessor's Office and an assessed value of 2,400,000 pesos. So here's a requirement. We have to compute for the capital gains tax. So before anything else, review muna natin how to compute for the capital gains tax on sale, exchange, and other disposition of real property classified as capital asset. So sabi dito, it will be subject to a tax of 6% of the selling price or the fair value, whichever is higher. But take note, etong fair value dito is the higher of the zonal value and the fair market value. Okay, dito na tayo sa illustration. So, take note na ang binenta dito sa illustration is a land. So therefore, meron siyang zonal value, meron siyang fair market value. So that means tatlo yung titingnan natin na valuations. Yung selling price, yung zonal value, at yung fair market value. Saan dito yung selling price? This one. This is the indication of the selling price. Sold a vacant agricultural land for 5 million pesos. So the 5 million pesos here is the selling price. Next, hahanapin natin ang zonal value. So obviously, ang zonal value ng land dito ay etong 7 million pesos. And then, next, hahanapin natin ang fair market value, which is this one. 6 million pesos as assessed by the Provincial Assessor's Office. Etong 2,400,000 pesos na assess value, huwag nyo na yung pansinin, pang-distract lang yan sa inyo, okay? Basta ito tandaan nyo, kapag yung real property na binenta ay land, tatlo yung amounts na kailangan natin i-compare. Yun yung selling price, zonal value, at fair market value as assessed by the Assessor's Office. So, dito sa illustration, alam na natin, no, kung magkano yung selling price. The selling price here is 5 million, tapos yung zonal value 7 million, and then yung fair market value ay 6 million. So, as a rule, yung magiging basis for CGT computation is the highest of those three amounts. So, alin ba dito yung pinakamalaki? That would be the zonal value, which is 7 million pesos. So, ito na ngayon yung computation natin for CGT. We have 7 million multiplied by the CGT rate of 6%. So, the capital gains tax is 420,000 pesos. Okay, proceed tayo sa second illustration natin, and this is all about the sale of the land and its improvement. So, sabi dito, si Anjo daw, binenta niya yung residential house and lot niya for 5 million pesos. So, yung lot, binili niya to dati for 1 million pesos. Tapos, pinatayuan niya ng bahay. So, ito yung tinutukoy ng improvement, itong bahay. And then, yung total cost of construction ng bahay ay 2,500,000 pesos. Tapos, we have here some information regarding the fair value of the real property owned by Anjo. So, for the lot, meron siyang zonal value per BIR valuation amounting to 4 million pesos. Tapos, yung assessor's valuation naman, the fair value is 3,500,000 pesos. Tapos, yung assessed value niya ay 800,000 pesos. Yung house, of course, wala yung zonal value kasi sa na-discuss natin, only land has the zonal value. And then, per assessor's valuation, yung house merong fair value na 2 million pesos. Tapos, yung assessed value niya ay 1,200,000 pesos. So, yung requirement dito is to compute for the capital gains tax. Okay, take note again, class, na in order to compute for the capital gains tax, we need to multiply the 6% CGT rate with the selling price or the fair value of the real property, whichever is higher. And then yung fair value dito is the higher between the zonal value and the fair market value. Okay? So going back to the illustration, ang binenta dito is not only lot, meron siyang kasamang improvement, which is the residential house. So, merong binugay na information about the fair value of the real property. For the lot, meron siyang zonal value of 4 million pesos. Tapos, yung fair value naman per assessor's valuation is 3,500,000 pesos. So, huwag nyo nang i-confuse yung sarili nyo sa assessed value. Hindi to kasali, ha? X na natin yan. Hindi siya kasali. So, yung i-compare natin dito is only the zonal value at yung fair value per assessor's valuation. So, saan ba yung mas malaki in terms of the amount? The zonal value. So, ang fair value na gagamitin natin would be the zonal value of 4 million pesos. And then for the house, yung fair value is 2 million pesos. Let's total this 2. We have 4 million plus 2 million. So the total fair value of the real property is 6 million pesos. Tapos, i-compare natin to sa selling price of the property, which is 5 million pesos. Now, ano nga yung sabi sa rule? Dapat yung higher between the selling price and the fair value. So, saan ba dito yung mas higher in terms of amount? Selling price is 5 million. Yung fair value is 6 million. So, obviously, that's the fair value na 6 million. Ito yung mas higher in amounts. So, dito natin i-multiply yung CGT rate na 6%. So, 6 million times 6%. So, the capital gains tax is 360,000 pesos. Another illustration, we have here a real property dealer sold a condo unit costing 1,200,000 pesos to a client for 1,500,000 pesos. The unit has a fair value of 1,800,000 pesos at the date of the sale. So the requirement here is to compute for the capital gains tax. So ano yung magiging CGT dito? That would be 0. Walang capital gains tax dito kasi si taxpayer ay isang real property dealer. So, ibig sabihin, itong condo unit, ito ay isang ordinary asset sa taxpayer and hindi siya capital asset. So, ulitin ko, walang capital gains tax. Alright, so proceed na tayo sa BIR tax clearance. Ayan. Ay, nako, mahaba. So, post nyo na yung video, tapos basahin nyo. Basta papaliwanag ko sa inyo kung ano yung laman dito. Yung ibig sabihin lang dito is that yung capital gains tax ay dapat mo nang bayaran bago ma-process yung transfer of title sa Registry of Deeds. Yun lang. Moving on to the nature of the 6% capital gains tax. So, number 1, presumption of capital gains tax. So, if you notice, sa computation natin ng capital gains tax, yung basis natin is the selling price or the fair value of the real property, whichever is higher. So, hindi na tayo nagko-compute whether meron bang actual gain or actual loss from the sale. Kasi dito, yung gain is always presumed to exist. Okay, letter B, another nature of the 6% CGT is that non-consideration to the involuntariness of the sale. So, ibig sabihin, yung capital gains tax is applicable kahit na yung sale ng real property is not voluntary. Like example, expropriation sale, foreclosure sale, or kaya disposition by judicial order or any form of forced disposition. Applicable din yung CGT dito sa conditional sales and pacto de retro sales. Okay, third nature of CGT is that it is a final tax. So, si buyer, siya yung responsible para mag-withhold ng capital gains tax. Tapos, responsible din siya para i-remit yung capital gains tax to the government. Scope and applicability of the 6% capital gains tax. So, the 6% CGT is applicable to all individual taxpayers and domestic corporations for the sale of the real properties located within the Philippines. Ulitin ko. So, yung 6% CGT daw ay applicable sa lahat ng individual taxpayers at domestic corporations with respect to the sale of real properties that are located here in the Philippines. So, question, bakit domestic corporations lang? How about the foreign corporations? So, ito yung sabi, for foreign corporations, yung realized gain nila from the sale of the real property that is located here inside the Philippines and is classified as capital asset is going to be subject to the regular income tax. And then with respect to the sale of real properties located outside the Philippines, hindi na yun subject for capital gains tax because of the territorial consideration. Pero class, I want you to take note ha, na yung actual gains from the sale, exchange, and disposition of properties located abroad, subject yun sa regular income tax para sa mga resident citizens and domestic corporations. Pero para sa ibang taxpayers, aside from the resident citizens and the domestic corporations, yung capital gains realized from the sale of the real properties located abroad ay exempt. Exempt siya. Alright, so now pag-usapan naman natin itong exceptions to the 6% capital gains tax. So, merong dalawang exceptions. Number 1 is the alternative taxation rule. And then number 2, itong exemption rules, which is consist of the exemption under the NIRC and the special laws. Okay, discuss muna natin itong alternative taxation rule. So, sabi dito, si individual seller ng real property capital assets, meron siyang dalawang options na pwede niyang pagpilian kung paano siya i-tax. It is either through the 6% capital gains tax or the regular income tax. Pero take note class, etong dalawang options, pwede lang siya kapag number 1, si seller ay isang individual taxpayer. So, pag sinabi nating individual taxpayer, hindi siya corporation. Okay? And then, number 2, dapat ang buyer ng real property ay si government or kanyang instrumentalities or agencies including GOCC or government-owned and controlled corporations. Okay, so to illustrate this alternative taxation, meron tayong example for this. Ayan, let me read it first. Gretchen sold to the government a vacant lot for 800,000 pesos. The lot was purchased for 200,000 pesos in 1980 and had an assessor's fair value of 400,000 pesos and zonal value of 500,000 pesos at the date of the sale. So, si Gretchen dito ay isang individual taxpayer. And sino ba yung buyer ng kanyang real property? Si government. So, ibig sabihin, si Gretchen ay merong dalawang options na pwede niyang pagpilian kung paano siya i-tax. At ito yung una, pwede niyang piliin ang 6% capital gains tax. So, ang mangyayari is that i-multiply lang niya yung 6% CGT sa 800,000 pesos. So, bakit 800,000 pesos? Kasi, 800,000 pesos yung pinaka-highest na valuation after comparing it with the 400,000 pesos fair value and the 500,000 pesos zonal value. And then, the second option of Gretchen is pwede niyang piliin yung regular income taxation. So, anong gagawin niya? So, ire-report niya yung 600,000 pesos na actual capital gain. So, paano kinompute yung 600,000 pesos actual gain? That is, 800,000 pesos selling price, tapos i-less natin yung purchase cost ng kanyang lot. In 1980, that was 200,000 pesos. So, 800,000 minus 200,000, that is 600,000 pesos. So, again, i-report niya yung 600,000 pesos actual gain sa kanyang annual regular income tax return. Basis of alternative taxation. So, bakit ba binigyan ng option si individual taxpayer to be taxed under 6% CGT or the regular income tax? Ito yung dahilan class. Yung sale kasi ng real property ni individual taxpayer sa government, minsan, nagre-result yan sa loss on the part of the individual taxpayer. So, imagine kung wala itong option na to. There's a possibility na si taxpayer or si individual taxpayer, nagkaroon na nga siya ng actual loss. Tapos, magbabayad pa siya ng capital gains tax. Kasi yung CGT computation, di ba, naka-base yun sa selling price at saka sa fair value of the real property, whichever is higher. So, it would be unfair on the part of the individual taxpayer. So, para naman kahit papaano medyo magaan on the part of the individual taxpayer, so, binigyan sila ng ganitong option. Okay, so proceed na tayo sa second exception to the 6% capital gains tax. Ito yung exemption rules. And unahin natin itong exemption under the NIRC. So, tungkol saan ba ito? Ito ay tungkol sa sale, exchange, and other disposition of a principal residence for the reacquisition of the new principal residence by individual taxpayers. So, ibig sabihin, ito ay tungkol sa sale, exchange, and other disposition sa principal residence ni individual taxpayers para makabili siya ng kanyang panibagong principal residence. Now, ano naman yung principal residence? So, ang principal residence, ito ay ang house and lot which is the primary domicile of the taxpayer. So, ibig sabihin, ito yung tinatawag nating home ni taxpayer. Dito siya nakatira. Ito yung inuuwian niya palagi. And then, halimbawa, kung si taxpayer, marami siyang residences. So, yung principal residence niya ay yung nasa kanyang latest tax declaration. Requisites of exemption. So, para ma-exempt si individual taxpayer from the capital gains tax on the sale of his or her principal residence, kailangan niya munang makomply etong mga requirements or requisites. So, number 1, dapat yung seller ng principal residence ay isang citizen or resident alien. Okay. Number 2, dapat yung binenta ay ang principal residence ni seller taxpayer. Number 3, yung proceeds ng sale dapat ay ginamit sa pagbili ng kanyang bagong principal residence. Number 4, dapat ay na-inform ni taxpayer si BIR tungkol sa kanyang intensyon na mai-exempt from the tax within 30 days from the sale sa pamamagitan ng BIR Form 1706 and ng sworn declaration of intent. Number 5, dapat si taxpayer ay makabili ng kanyang bagong principal residence within 18 months from the date of the sale. Number 6, yung capital gains tax na na-compute in relation to the sale of the principal residence ay dapat nakadeposit sa isang escrow account in favor of the government. Number 7, etong exemption na to ay pwede lang ma-avail ni taxpayer once in every 10 years. And then, lastly, number 8, yung historical cost or adjusted basis of the principal residence sold shall be carried over to the new principal residence built or acquired. And then take note, this is also very important. Dapat mas nauna yung pagbenta ng principal residence bago yung pagbili ng bagong principal residence ni individual taxpayer. Alright, so proceed na tayo sa illustration for this kind of exemption under the NIRC. Let me read it first. So, si Helen daw, binenta niya yung principal residence niya for 5 million pesos. Pero yung fair market value ng kanyang principal residence at the time of sale is 6 million pesos. And then, etong principal residence niya, binili niya several years ago for 3 million pesos. So, ang unang gagawin natin dito is to compute for the capital gains tax. So, we have 6 million multiplied by 6% capital gains tax rate. Yung tanong ngayon is bakit 6 million? 6 million kasi itong 6 million fair market value is higher than the selling price of 5 million pesos. So, ano ba yung nasa rule natin? Whichever is higher between the selling price and the fair market value. So, that's why we're using the fair market value of 6 million pesos and then multiplied by the CGT rate of 6%. So, yung capital gains tax is 360,000 pesos. So, here, kung si Helen is planning to acquire her new residence, dapat ma-indicate niya yung kanyang intention to apply for exemption sa kanyang CGT return na ipa-file. Tapos magsasubmit siya ng kanyang sworn declaration of intent. Then, yung 360,000 pesos capital gains tax na kinompute natin, kailangan niya yung i-deposit in an escrow account in favor of the government. Now, assuming bumili si Helen ang kanyang bagong principal residence for 5,200,000 pesos within 18 months. So, ang tanong, is she really exempt from paying the capital gains tax? So, ano bang sagot natin? Ha? So, depende yan kung na-comply ba lahat ni Helen yung requisites for exemption. Okay, so isa-isahin natin. Check natin if na-comply ba talaga ni Helen. Hindi ko na ipapakita yung requisites ha. Total, napag-usapan na natin yung kanina. So, babanggitin ko na lamang. So, yung number one requisite is that dapat si seller ay isang citizen o kaya resident alien. So, citizen, it could be resident citizen or non-resident citizen. So, dito sa illustration, hindi sinabi kung anong klaseng individual taxpayer si Helen. Pero obviously, hindi siya non-resident alien. Silent yung problem. So, most likely si Helen ay isang citizen o kaya resident alien. So, that requirement is complied or met. Another requisite, this is number 2, dapat yung sale involves the principal residence of the seller. So, ano ba yung binenta ni Helen dito? Kanyang principal residence. So, this second requisite is also met. Number 3, dapat yung proceeds of the sale dapat ay ginamit para bumili ng bagong principal residence. Ito ba ay ginawa ni Helen? Of course, ginawa niya, di ba? In fact, bumili siya ng bagong principal residence for 5,200,000 pesos. Ito yung sabi sa assumption natin. Number 4. So requisite number 3 is also met. Okay, proceed tayo sa number 4. Na-notify ba si BIR? Yes, na-notify niya. Nag-submit siya ng CGT return tapos sworn declaration of intent. So, requisite number 4 is also met. Then, moving on to number 5. Nakabili ba siya ng bagong residence within 18 months after the sale? Of course, yes. Yan ang sabi sa assumption, di ba? Let me read. Bumili siya ng new principal residence for 5,200,000 pesos within 18 months. So, requisite number 5 is also met. Number 6. Yung capital gains tax ba ay na-deposit sa escrow account in favor to the government? Oo, na-deposit niya. Pinag-usapan natin yan kanina. And then how about requisites number 7 and 8? So, exemption can only be availed of once in every 10 years, and then the historical cost or adjusted basis of the principal residence sold shall be carried over to the new principal residence built or acquired. So, this is assumed or these are all considered complied. So, all the requirements or requisites are met by Helen. Therefore, yung sale niya ay exempt from the capital gains tax. Pero yung tanong, as to how much ba yung exemption? Eto, tandaan nyo class, kapag merong full utilization, ibig sabihin ng full utilization, lahat ng proceeds ng sale ng old principal residence ay ginamit para makabili ng bagong principal residence. Now, in that case, si individual taxpayer ay entitled to the exemption of the capital gains tax. So, yung nakadeposit na capital gains tax sa escrow account in favor to the government, ibabalik yun sa taxpayer. So now, ang tanong dito sa illustration, meron bang full utilization na nangyari? Yes or no? It's a yes. Kasi, 'di ba? Tingnan niyo, magkano yung proceeds from the sale? It's 5 million pesos. Magkano naman yung binili na new principal residence? 5,200,000 pesos. So, merong full utilization of the proceeds. In fact, nagdagdag pa si Helen ng 200,000 for her new principal residence, diba? Kasi, again, yung proceeds from the sale is 5 million, tapos yung binili niyang bagong principal residence is 5,200,000 pesos. So, since merong full utilization, ibig sabihin, exempt yung sale sa capital gains tax. So, walang babayaran na capital gains tax si Helen. So, what will happen? is that yung 360,000 pesos capital gains tax na dineposit sa escrow account in favor to the government ay i-release or ibabalik kay Helen. Alright, now pag-uusapan naman natin itong tax basis of the new residents. So this one, itong tax basis of the new residents, this is actually not relevant for real property capital assets. Pero if later on, kung ang real property capital asset is converted into an ordinary asset, etong tax basis ay magiging importante na in determining the gain or loss. Kaya, minomonitor din itong tax basis. Okay, so now, ipapakita ko sa inyo kung paano yung computation ng tax basis ng new residence. So, we will start with the basis of the old residence, which is 3 million pesos. Ito yung acquisition price ni Helen sa kanyang principal residence. Diba? Sabi sa illustration, binili niya yung kanyang principal residence several years ago for 3 million pesos. So, ito yung basis ng old residence, 3 million pesos. Tapos, we're going to add the additional out-of-pocket cost na 200,000 pesos. So, saan galing itong 200,000 pesos? So, we have the acquisition price of the new principal residence na 5,200,000 pesos. Tapos, less natin yung proceeds from the sale of the old residence na 5 million pesos. So, we have 200,000 pesos. And then, total is 3,200,000 pesos. So, ito na yung bagong tax basis ng new residence. Okay, so proceed tayo sa next illustration natin. Actually, same lang yung illustration except for this one sa assumption. Kasi sabi dito sa assumption, out of the 5 million pesos proceeds from the sale of the principal residence, yung ginamit lang ni Helen to buy a new principal residence is only 4,500,000 pesos. So, merong partial utilization of proceeds. Bakit partial? Kasi, ulitin ko ha, yung proceeds from the sale of her principal residence is 5 million. Tapos, yung ginamit lang niya para bumili ng bagong principal residence is only 4,500,000 pesos. Now, since hindi ginamit ni Helen yung buong 5 million pesos proceeds from the sale of her principal residence sa pagbili ng kanyang bagong principal residence, that means yung 360,000 pesos capital gains tax na dineposit in an escrow agreement in favor of the government is going to be allocated between her, Helen, and the government. So, yung portion ni Helen, that will refer to the 4,500,000 pesos na ginamit niya to buy her new principal residence. So, ganito yung computation. We have 4,500,000 pesos. Again, itong 4,500,000 pesos, ito yung ginamit ni Helen to buy new principal residence. And then, divide natin by 5 million pesos, which is the proceeds from the sale of her old principal residence. And then, multiply natin sa 360,000 CGT. So, the answer to that would be 324,000 pesos. So, itong 324,000 pesos, ito ay i-release or ibabalik kay Helen. And then, on the part of the government, yung portions na para sa kanya would refer to the amount na hindi ginamit ni Helen to buy her new principal residence, which is the 500,000 pesos. So, ganito yung computation. We have 500,000 pesos or 0.5 M. So, that stands for 500,000 pesos. And then, divide natin sa selling price or, yung total proceeds from the sale of the old principal residence, which is 5 million. And then, multiplied by the CGT of 360,000. So, ang kukunin ni government is 36,000 pesos. So, again, yung 324,000 ay ibabalik kay Helen. Tapos, yung 36,000, yun yung kukunin ni government. Now, what if merong interest income? 'Di ba remember, etong 360,000 pesos, dineposit ito sa isang escrow account sa isang authorized bank in favor of the government. So, mag-a-accrue yan ng interest income. So, what if meron ngang interest income? Kanino ba mapupunta yung interest income? Kay taxpayer or sa government? Sa taxpayer. So, kay Helen mapupunta kung meron mang interest income. Let us now compute for the tax basis of the new residence with less than full utilization. Okay, uulitin ko yung nabanggit ko kanina lang ha, na etong tax basis of the new residence, hindi naman to relevant with respect to with respect to real property capital assets. Pero kailangan pa rin siyang i-monitor just in case one day mapagpasyahan ni taxpayer na i-convert yung real property capital asset niya into an ordinary asset. So, yun. Kaya laging minomonitor itong tax basis ng new residence. So, ganito yung magiging computation. We have the tax basis of the old residence, which is 3 million, tapos multiply natin sa fraction. So, yung fraction is utilized proceeds divided by the total proceeds. So, magkano ba yung nagamit na proceeds from the sale? Only 4,500,000 pesos. Tapos, over or divided by the total proceeds from the sale of 5 million. So, 3 million times 4,500,000 divided by 5 million. So the tax basis of the new residence is 2,700,000 pesos. Let us now proceed to the next illustration. Alberto sold his residential lot with fair value of 1 million pesos for 2 million pesos. He purchased a new residence for 1,500,000 pesos within 18 months. Okay, ano yung binenta ni Alberto? Residential lot. So, covered ba siya sa exemption? Yes or no? No. Kasi yung exemption ay tungkol lamang sa principal residence, no? Yung binenta yung principal residence para bumili ng bagong principal residence. So, hindi ito covered sa exemption. So, therefore, si Alberto ay magbabayad ng capital gains tax, which is computed by multiplying the CGT rate of 6% times, ano ba yung higher between fair value and selling price dito? The selling price. Kasi itong million yung selling price. So, 2 million times 6%. So, magbabayad si Alberto ng capital gains tax of 120,000 pesos. Moving on to the next illustration. So, illustration number 3. Afraid of ghosts that frequently appear in his mansion residence, Raymond left his mansion and bought a new home for 17 million pesos as his principal residence. Within 3 months, Raymond was able to sell his mansion for 40 million pesos. So in this case, yung sale ni Raymond ng kanyang mansion for 40 million pesos will be subject to the capital gains tax of 6%. O, tanong nyo, bakit hindi exempt? Hindi siya exempt kasi, in this case, mas nauna na bumili si Raymond ng bagong principal residence bago pa niya naibenta yung kanyang old principal residence. So, para kasi ma-exempt, dapat mas mauna niyang ibenta yung kanyang old residence bago siya bumili ng kanyang bago. Ayan. Okay, so now let us talk about the second exemption rule, that is the exemption under special laws. So ito ay tungkol sa sale of land pursuant to the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program and sale of socialized housing units by the National Housing Authority. So, sale of land under the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program. So, sabi dito, the sale of agricultural lands by landowners pursuant to the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program of the government shall be exempt from the capital gains tax. Similarly, yung interest income din sa selling price that may have been agreed by the landowner and the tenant buyer shall be exempt from the income tax. Oh, I think this is very clear, no? I know, naintindihan nyo na to. Hindi ko na to i-discuss further. And then the other exemption is the sale of socialized housing units by the National Housing Authority. So this exemption is limited to socialized housing units only. Ha? Take note, ang exemption na to is only limited to socialized housing units. So the BIR ruled that the sale of the National Housing Authority of commercial lots is not part of the socialized housing projects for the poor and homeless. So that is subject to capital gains tax or regular tax and documentary stamp tax. So ito, take note lang. Yung exempt lang is yung socialized housing units. Pero kung si NHA ay nagbenta ng commercial lots, of course, that will be subject to the regular tax or capital gains tax and also documentary stamp tax. Alright, so now ay pag-uusapan naman natin itong payment of the 6% CGT and installment. So yung capital gains tax, pwede siyang bayaran through installment as long as itong condition na to is na-met. Ito. It would be allowed only if under the payment terms, yung initial payment does not exceed 25% of the selling price. So, yun yung condition. The question is, ano naman yung initial payment? Ang initial payment, that refers to the collections in the taxable year that the sale is made. Okay, so let's have illustrations para mas maintindihan natin. Okay, on December 1, 2016, Miss Batanes sold for 4 million pesos and an unused lot with a cost and fair value of 2 million pesos and 5 million pesos respectively. The buyer agreed to pay 500,000 pesos monthly installments starting December 31, 2016. Okay. So, ang unang gagawin is to compute for the CGT. So, ano ba yung magiging basis dito? Which is the higher between the selling price and the fair value. Selling price is 4 million and then yung fair value is 5 million. So our basis would be 5 million pesos and then multiplied by 6%. So yung capital gains tax ay 300,000 pesos. Okay. So yung payment terms is installment, 'di ba? So ang tanong ngayon is pwede bang installment din yung pagbabayad ng capital gains tax na 300,000 pesos? So para malaman kung pwede ba, we have to compute for the initial payment ratio. So, una natin gagawin to get the ratio is to get how much is the initial payment. So, ano uli yung initial payment? Ito yung collections in the taxable year. The sale is made. Okay. Kailan ba nangyari yung sale? That is on December 1, 2016. So far, meron pang isang installment that was made on December 31, which is 500,000. So, yun lang yung initial payment natin. So, here's the computation, the formula in getting the initial payment. In getting the ratio of initial payment. We have total initial payment divided by selling price. So, as I said, yung initial payment natin is only 500,000 pesos. And then, divide natin sa selling price, which is 4 million pesos. So, the ratio of initial payment is 12.50%. So, ano ba yung condition natin? Dapat yung ratio of initial payment does not exceed 25% of the selling price. So, obviously, 12.50%, it does not exceed 25%. So, qualified si Ms. Batanes to pay the capital gains tax in installment. Now, magkano ba yung babayaran niya every installment? So, we have 500,000 and then that's the installment payment divided by the selling price of 4 million pesos and then multiplied by the capital gains tax of 300,000 pesos. So, ang babayaran na CGT in every installment would be 37,500 pesos. Alright, so let us now proceed to the next illustration and this time meron ng pampagulo na mortgage. Okay. So on December 1, 2016, Miss Batanes sold for 4 million pesos and an unused lot with a cost and fair value of 2 million and 5 million respectively. Assume that the lot is mortgaged for 1 million pesos, which the buyer assumed, and the buyer agreed to pay the 3 million pesos balance in 300,000 pesos monthly installments starting December 31, 2016. Okay. So, ang una natin gagawin is to compute for the capital gains tax. So, we have 5 million times 6%. So, bakit 5 million? Kasi si 5 million fair value is higher than the selling price of 4 million. So, 5 million times 6%, that is equal to 300,000 pesos. Now, question is, qualified ba si Miss Batanes to pay the 300,000 pesos CGT in installments? That is something that we need to find out by determining the ratio of the initial payment. So here's the formula. In getting the ratio of initial payment, we have total initial payment divided by the selling price. So again, yung initial payment dito is 500,000 pesos only. Yun yung unang installment payment made during the year of sale. So we have 500,000 pesos. I know it's not 500,000, 300,000 pesos. Okay. 300,000 pesos, yun yung monthly installment. And yun lang yung installment na meron within the year of sale. So we have 300,000 pesos initial payment divided by the selling price of 4 million pesos. So yung ratio is 7.5%. So ano yung sabi sa condition? Dapat yung ratio ng initial payment does not exceed 25% of the selling price, which is na-met naman. Kasi 7.5% lang eh. This is less than 25%. So, pwede na bayaran ni Miss Batanes in installment yung um, capital gains tax na 300,000 pesos. Now, the question would be, magkano ba yung babayaran na capital gains tax ni Miss Batanes in every installment? Okay? So, to determine that, kailangan muna nating alamin kung magkano yung contract price. So, yung contract price, by the way, kung walang mortgage, usually selling price lang yun. That's why yung previous illustration natin, yung contract price natin is only the selling price na 4 million pesos. Now, kasi meron siyang mortgage na in-assume. So, ganito yung magiging computation ng contract price. So, we have selling price na 4 million. Tapos, we're going to less the mortgage na in-assume ni buyer, which is 1 million. So, yung contract price would be 3 million pesos. So, from this, pwede na tayong mag-compute ng CGT na babayaran ni Ms. Batanes in every installment. So, ganito yung magiging computation. So, we have 300,000 pesos. Ito yung installment payment, no? Payment every installment divided by the contract price of 3 million and then multiplied by the capital gains tax of 300,000 pesos. So, ang sagot niyan is 30,000 pesos. So, that means in every installment, ang babayaran na CGT ni Ms. Batanes is 30,000 pesos. Now, let's proceed to the third illustration. So, this time, yung mortgage is in excess of the cost. So, on December 1, 2016, Ms. Batanes sold for 4 million pesos an unused lot with a cost and fair value of 2 million pesos and 5 million pesos respectively. Assume that the lot is mortgaged for 2,500,000 pesos, which the buyer assumed and the buyer agreed to pay the 1,500,000 pesos balance in 300,000 pesos monthly installments starting December 31, 2016. Okay. Take note na yung mortgage is 2,500,000 pesos. Tapos yung cost ng lot is only 2 million pesos. So, meron tayong tinatawag na indirect down payment. So, the indirect down payment here is 500,000 pesos. So, that is 2,500,000 pesos mortgage assumed minus the 2 million pesos cost of the lot. Ayan. So, ang gagawin natin, firstly, is to get the CGT. So, we have 5 million times 6%. So, that is equal to 300,000 pesos. So, bakit 5 million yung gamit? Kasi, etong 5 million fair value is higher than the selling price of 4 million. Now, the question is, pwede bang bayaran ni Miss Batanes in installment, itong CGT na 300,000 pesos, considering na installment naman yung payment terms dito. So, our answer will depend on the result of the ratio of the initial payment. So, compute muna natin kung ano yung ratio. So, this is the formula. We have total initial payment divided by the selling price. So, again, yung initial payment, yun yung payments or collections na natanggap ni Miss Batanes, no? Collections na natanggap ni Miss Batanes on the year of the sale. So far, yung na-collect ni Miss Batanes is ito lang 300,000 pesos na first monthly installment on December. And then, i-add natin itong indirect down payment na 500,000. Tapos, divide natin sa selling price na 4 million pesos. So, the ratio would be 20%. So, ano yung condition? Dapat does not exceed 25% of the selling price. So, pasok ba? Pasok. So, that means qualified si Ms. Batanes na bayaran yung CGT na 300,000 pesos in installment. Okay, so next, alamin natin kung magkano ba yung babayaran ni Ms. Batanes na CGT in every installment. Pero firstly, we have to get the contract price kasi ito yung importante when getting the installment payment of the SCGT. So, ganito yung computation ng contract price. We have selling price na 4 million pesos and then deduct natin yung mortgage na inassume ni buyer which is 2,500,000. So, the difference is 1,500,000 pesos. So, ito yung cash collectible plus don't forget na meron tayong indirect down payment na 500,000 pesos. So, we're going to add it. So, the total contract price would be 2 million pesos. Okay. So, now that we already have the contract price, pwede na nating computein kung magkano yung CGT na babayaran in every installment. So, for the sale, meron tayong indirect down payment, di ba, na 500,000. So, we're going to divide it with the contract price of 2 million and then multiplied by the CGT which is 300,000 pesos. So during the sale magbabayad si Miss Batanes ng CGT amounting to 75,000 pesos. And then in every installment ang CGT na babayaran would be we have 300,000 monthly installment divided by the contract price of 2 million times 300,000 pesos. So, for every installment, magbabayad si Miss Batanes ng CGT amounting to 45,000 pesos. Now, what if the initial payment ratio exceeds 25% of the selling price? So, what will happen? So, yung sale is going to be considered as cash sale. So, that means yung capital gains tax, babayaran yan in lump sum upon filing the CGT return. So, this applies without regard to whether or not any mortgage on the property exceeds the cost of the property disposed. Okay, let's proceed to the deadline for payment of the CGT. So, kailan ba yung deadline sa pagbabayad ng CGT? Sabi dito, the 6% CGT will be filed through BIR Form 1706 and is due within 30 days from the date of sale or exchange. And then, if the capital gains tax is qualified for installment payment, yung due date will be within 30 days upon receipt of every installment. Alright, so now pag-uusapan natin itong documentary stamp tax on the sale of capital assets. So for domestic stocks that are sold directly to a buyer, yung documentary stamp tax is 1 pesos and 50 centavos for every 200 pesos of the par value of the stocks sold. Tapos for real properties, yung documentary stamp tax ay 15 pesos for every 1,000 pesos in fractional parts of the tax basis thereof, which is gross selling price or fair market value, whichever is higher. And then if the government is a party to the sale, the basis shall be the consideration paid. Let's have this illustration. A taxpayer disposed a real property capital asset acquired for 2 million pesos 10 years ago for 4 million pesos. The property has a fair market value of 5 million pesos and declared real property value per real property tax declaration of 3 million pesos. Now, compute for the documentary stamp tax. Okay, so we have 5 million pesos, and then we divide it by 1,000 pesos and then multiplied by 15 pesos. So bakit 5 million pesos? Kasi yung fair market value na 5 million pesos is higher compared to the cross-selling price, which is 4 million pesos. So that's why we're using the 5 million pesos. And then divide natin sa 1,000 pesos and then multiplied by 15. So yung documentary stamp tax here is 75,000 pesos.